So today we're here with April, owner of Deans Duets, and we're going to go ahead and dive in and get started really just by telling me a little bit about your business. I feel like we have been in business a similar amount of time, right? How long have you been in it?
Yes. So I think our business has probably been an official business for about 8 years. But I know
Okay.
that before that, I was, doing weddings since I was 13. So I was playing up in Boone in graduate school and just kind of making some extra money. I can go back, I guess, though. I started violin when I was 3, and my sister played the violin as well, and we played weddings when we were teenagers because we were both working. I was working at Dairy Queen and she was too young to have a job, and we were both like, we need some money. And so we were at that point pretty good at playing the violin, not professionals by any means, but we were like, we could play for some weddings. So anyway, we made business cards and took them around to bridal shops and alteration shops and dropped them off. And I can't believe anybody let us play their wedding when we were that young, but they did.
I
Um,
love it.
but
That's
yeah,
so
so we
amazing.
had a lot of experience just kind of in those early years. And then so we've officially been a business for about 8 years, where we started bringing on people who played different instruments and making the team larger, like if somebody would request a guitar or a piano or harp or something like that.
It's an amazing resource for our area.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're always kind of adding new things as people ask for them. Like, if somebody asked for bagpipes a few years ago, and now we offer bagpipes, and now we offer jazz and bluegrass and folk and things like that, just that have emerged naturally from people requesting them. So it's really
That's
fun to
amazing.
just kind of see where it goes.
Well, and probably fun for the musicians too, because a lot of musicians that are classically trained also have this other skill set. And so, I think we've had a wedding with you all where we had, more classical for the ceremony, and then your team transitioned into cocktail hour. And it was a totally different style, but like it wasn't different musicians, it was the same ones. They just like rebranded.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And I find that musicians that are pretty versatile gravitate to us. I just
uh-huh.
think because we do so many different things and we like to have a lot of fun with our music. So
Hmm.
most of them are classically trained, but then they have like some other genre of music that they really enjoy. So
Hmm.
a lot of our musicians, I find, like a lot of our violinists play the mandolin or,
Right. Same tuning,
multiple
right?
instruments, things like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. Um, I think one thing that's different from you all than other companies is you all, whether it's through partnership or yourself, you have the ability to provide AV, which not
Yes.
all musicians have that, and not just for your musicians, but you also can put a microphone, a lapel mic on the minister
Hmm.
and the groom and have a sound tech there that's actually going to run that sound. Because I
Yes.
always tell couples that bad sound is worse than no sound at all, for
Oh, it
sure.
totally is.
And
Yeah.
and there's all the independent variables with the wind. Even if you have a great sound tech, sometimes there's some things that are beyond their control and it's a
Hmm.
bad day. But I mean, you all definitely put your best foot forward as far as like facilitating all of that, which is what
Thanks.
it's super important to us to be able to just like trust that that's taken care of.
Yes. And I totally agree. It's so nice to have somebody who can do AV too, but we did AV for a while, offering a lapel microphone with just the musicians trying to do
Mm,
it as an
that's so
add-on. And it
stressful.
didn't work. Like we just did it a few times. We were like, oh, it worked okay, but it was like they couldn't focus on their job. So now we
Yeah.
always book it separately with a sound person, and
Yeah.
it's so much better. And our sound people are great. They
Mhm.
just come for sound. They know what they're doing. It's like
Mhm.
their area. Yeah, it's great. But there were a lot of kinks to work out since I'm not a sound
Sound
person.
sound is scary. I mean,
It is.
I'm a musician and I have like a sound system. I've got like a great little tower system, but I don't offer it for weddings because I don't want to have to think about that aspect either. Like it's too scary for me that if something goes wrong, then like whoop,
Oh, I
everybody's
know.
looking at you.
Well, and you're right to the point that like sometimes the very best sound person, something just happens. I mean, we've all been at huge concerts where like
I
sound goes
know.
wrong, and these are the best sound people ever. And so But I think knowing that 95% of the time it's going to be right, and we're going to control the wind and
Mhm.
things like that, like I think that's the important part.
And that's all we can do. And I always tell our couples too, like, hey, I mean, it's not foolproof, but you've got the best team. Um,
Exactly. At least you're giving it the best possible shot that you can to make it sound good.
Man, I will say, so your business has been open 8 years. I would have said 12, 13, because that's how long I've been in it. And I feel like I've seen you the whole time. But in that time, your business has scaled like so huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk,
So,
talk about that.
well, probably those other 4 years were just me playing weddings with you
Uh-huh.
and not really calling it a business yet. So we did a lot of that before I ever had the courage to be like, okay, somebody can go play a wedding with my name on it. And I'm okay with trusting them with that. It took me
Right.
a long time to get there. And I think that's when we officially made our business a business and filed for an LLC and did all those things, when I finally said, I want this to be profitable. I want this to be my full-time job. And I can never do that if it's just me going out and playing, even if it's with me with a
I
big
know.
group. Like, it's never going to be what I want it to be unless I can trust other people. So I just started very slowly, like tiptoeing into, okay, I really feel like this person knows what they're doing, training them. And so we would, just for the first few years, we would only send out 2 or 3 teams
Hmm.
because I didn't really feel like I had met anybody that would execute a wedding and really care the way that I care. But over time, we've just found those people, and once we find them, we're just like, keep play with us. We want you to play with us
What do you
every
need?
weekend. Right. What do you need from us? So I think that's how it's become more successful. And we've been able to scale it, is that like once we find that person, we can tell. And it's honestly probably as much personality as it is what a good player they are,
Absolutely.
because we have had many, many good players that just are not the right fit personality wise. And they have to care that the wedding goes well, and not just care that it goes well, but care that the clients are happy, and acknowledge that this is somebody's wedding day and that it's not okay to, I mean, really, we should kind of beat ourselves up if we make a big mistake on a wedding day, because it's
Right.
it's a big deal.
It's a big.
So it is a big deal, but that's kind of the way we've grown, gradually, and kind of gone into other areas. Like, we'll meet new musicians that we really like in one area, and then we kind of know that they'll basically travel within a 2-hour radius,
Mhm.
and so we kind of have built that way.
That's amazing. How many musicians are currently under your umbrella?
We have about, so I would say about 100 played with us last year.
Mhm.
70 are the ones that played, multiple times with
Mhm.
us throughout the year. Right now, we're trying to cap our numbers on busy Saturdays somewhere from 10 to 15
Mhm.
weddings, depending on how many people we have and, who's available.
Right.
We really structured around who can lead a wedding. So
Mhm.
we want to make sure that we have those, leads who have played with us for most of the time years,
Mhm.
to be able to go out and like lead the group and, talk to the planner, figure
Right.
out the cues, all the things. Yeah.
Mhm. Wow, that's so cool. So you said like 15 a weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
That's
about our
amazing.
max. We try to not do more than
Sure,
that right
of course.
now, because we feel like if we do, we have to cap it or the quality will
Absolutely.
increase. So, and like that's not okay. So, even so, sometimes people will reach out and they'll be like, "Please, please, please, can you fit us in?" And I'll try to do it. I'll try to move some things around, but at some point, I'm just like, if we add any more, our quality won't be
Mhm.
there, and we just can't do that. So, yeah, I would say 10 to 15 a weekend is about where we are right now.
Mhm. Well, and your sanity too. Let's talk
Yeah.
about like what kind of boundaries do you have? Do you have admin support with all this? I know you have a good CRM because I see, the clients get
Yes.
the automatic emails and the contract and
Mhm.
all that's easy to do online. They can go to your website to reference all the different arrangements and everything, but like how do you keep yourself sane managing all of that?
It's a full-time job to keep
Yep.
myself sane. I don't know if I have a great answer for that. But yes, we have a lot of admin help. So we have 4 people on our admin team who are, solid admin team. We have about 6 who are kind of accessory to that, like
Mm.
making our set lists. We have a program where we can put all of our music onto a set list and send it out to our musicians, and they just click and it appears in their iPad in order, things like that. So people doing like things that are not necessarily in our email, but kind of helping us get ready for the wedding day, things like that. We have, so I would say about 6 people that are helping me. I have an assistant who helps me respond to emails and things like that. And then Donna, who's been with us for
Mhm.
almost as long as we've been around,
Yeah.
is really more of our musician correspondent, I guess we would call her. And so she does all of the contact with the musicians. We decided a few years ago that I couldn't keep talking to clients and talking to musicians, although I still talk to musicians. We really do try to keep it separate so that, like, if I'm like, oh, I can't remember if this person has any sound equipment, that's kind of, she knows that she has all of her spreadsheets and things like that. So we kind of come together on busy weekends to say who should go where. And so Donna and I
Wow.
always do that together because I know the client side and she knows the musician side. And then we kind of merge the two and figure out where people are going.
That's amazing. I mean, just having a great team is,
It's amazing. Yeah. And our CRM, you're right. It has been life changing
you know,
to, I remember the first several years. I mean, I have these notebooks, I have 10 of them in our attic that still have the tabs on the side for each wedding. And it would have like the last name and the date.
oh,
And I go back and look at those notebooks because I would like make a copy of their check and put it in the notebook, and it was
yeah.
all paper, and I don't see how I ever did it. They even signed their contract and mailed it to us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so the
There's been
CRM has
there's been such a
transformed
big
things.
arc in technology from when we all first
Yes.
started out.
Oh, and we didn't even have access to it then, or if we did, I was not aware of it. It
Right.
never even occurred to me that we could do all of this electronically. It's
I know.
amazing.
It really is. It really
Yeah,
is.
it's changed a lot.
Let's see. Okay. Do you have any tips for someone who has a smaller business that wants to scale it? Just general business tips. And if you don't,
Oh,
that's okay too.
okay. Let's see. Well, I would say, first of all, I have learned to work with people that you like. So to not work with people based on their current skill set. Like, yes, they need to have a skill set, they need to be able to play their instrument, but like a
Mhm.
lot of our admin help are not musicians. And they're mom friends from, kids' school who want to do some things at home on their computer or things like that. And I've just found so much success working with people who I just know have great integrity and work ethic and all the things, and are just fun people that I like to be around, and that I'm going to have a good time if I just go get coffee with them and want to talk about something. So I would say that's one thing I've really learned, is that at the beginning I was trying to hire people based on like if they knew a lot about technology and could help with our CRM and things like that, and it just didn't work. That's a mistake I made at the beginning. The other mistake I made was hiring people because I worked with students so much as a teacher. And so I kept hiring people who were just finished being students. And I realized it wasn't working because you just need I found we needed a little bit more life experience to be able to handle all of the really difficult things that come along with it. So anyway, that's one thing I've learned um, owning a business is
Yeah, those are two really great things. Yeah.
hiring.
Hiring the
Yeah.
person, not the job
Yes,
necessarily.
exactly. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then, yeah, I mean, an age or an experience level as
Oh,
well.
totally. Yeah.
Mhm.
It makes such a big difference. And yeah, I'm trying to think what else.
Well, because you can spin your wheels training a lot, and then if that person, you know, just leaves or isn't ready for it, then you've spent a lot of time training. which
And
in
then
this business is hard.
it's so painful then to be
I
like, well, do
know.
I cut my losses? Like, what do I do? And it's just, it's tough. But I mean, I guess the other thing I've learned is that you only get one reputation.
Oh,
So don't like be okay and be like, oh, it'll probably be fine. I'll just hope it goes well. And yes, I mean, there are times that everything's not going to be perfect and you shouldn't try to make it perfect because I think scaling, like, you have to get to a point where you're like, my product is going to be better than most random people going out and playing a wedding who aren't wedding musicians, right?
mhm.
Like, because we do this every weekend and we know all the crazy things that can happen at a wedding and all of that. But so I think you have to kind of balance, like, I will work really hard to keep this amazing reputation. For example, like, I had a musician come in one time and I brought them to a rehearsal because they hadn't played with us before. And um, I thought he was going to be great. And he came in and I was like, oh my goodness, I've made a big mistake. And I was so glad he had come to a rehearsal. And, I just, in the nicest way, I was like, thank you so much. It's been great. It's been really great getting to know you. I don't really feel, and just kind of like let him down nicely, but I paid him in full for that wedding.
Of
I was
course.
like, I'm not going to not pay him because he was trying so hard. It wasn't his fault that he wasn't up to the challenge. I probably hadn't communicated it well enough to be like, this is our standard. So I just feel like in every possible way with your team and with clients, sometimes you just spend the money or do what you need to do to keep the reputation intact because
Mhm.
that's never going to come back if somebody, you know, trashes you or, is really,
Right.
really not happy with the experience. It's hard to get that back. You can, and some people are just crazy, and that's just
Yeah,
going to be
yeah,
the way
there
it
is a
is.
certain point in which you have to let it go. But yeah, you're right. A paying for collateral damage. I mean, there's been I can't even think of how many instances where it's like, nope, let's just yeah, cut our losses
Yep.
and yeah,
Cut our losses and
cost of doing business. But
yep.
yeah, happy client is, the most
It's
important.
important. Yeah, and leaving that cushion financially too, so that you're like, if
Absolutely.
something crazy happens, it's not great, but you do have to plan for it every once in a while
Mhm.
that somebody's going to get sick and you're going to have to pay for somebody to drive 4 hours to an event where that person was only going to drive 1 hour or
Right.
things like that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, just kind of planning ahead and making sure you're prepared to do what you need to do to
Sure.
keep the reputation there, I think has been really
Well,
important.
and we overstaff to where if somebody were to be sick, it would probably be okay. I mean, you see us, there's usually 4 of us even on a small wedding. But I
Yes.
mean, some people go home, early. It's not like we just keep 4 people all day
Yeah.
long. 60
But you're
person
right.
wedding, but like you need to be a lot of different places at once for a condensed amount of time. And for us, I mean, even that person that's there for 4 or 5 hours, that's still they're not doing anything else that day. So you do have to pay a high premium to get that event staff.
Yes.
Because I've always thought of it that, if you're going to have a good event staff team, then you basically need to pay like what a bartender makes on a Saturday night for somebody to actually give up their Saturday.
Right. Because they
So
really are
yeah,
giving up their whole day.
they're giving up their whole day. So yeah, overstaffing and paying them well is one of our non-negotiables as a company.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like it's just important to think how much would I need to take the whole day away from my family on a
Mhm.
Saturday. And it's important to pay that. And I know a lot of people, it's a question we get all the time of like, well, you're only playing an hour. Can
An
you
hour and 20 years.
right? And my entire
The training that's gone,
Saturday.
the training, not to mention like money, admin, education that has
Right.
gone into
But
you playing that 1
yes.
hour flawlessly.
Right.
And how many people, with your company, how many people have to touch that event
Yes.
before it goes out the door? Like I do sales and marketing for Reads as well. And,
Mhm.
we specialize mainly in larger events
Yes.
because it's like, okay, so we get an inquiry. They have to talk to me or Kelsey. We talk with them. We put together a full proposal. Sometimes we meet with the chefs to build that proposal, send it to them,
Mm-hmm.
go back and forth. Somebody sends contract and invoice. And then, they're going to have questions throughout the process. We meet as a team several times to discuss their event, who's packing the van, what equipment is going.
Oh,
Like, it's not, you can't
so
just,
many things.
yeah, you can't do little stuff. And because I mean, that's like 8 people that
Yes.
basically like touch that event by the time
Right.
it's like
Yep.
gone out the door, it's work. Da, 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 da. So it's like it's got to be like a $3,000 minimum or something, unless it's just the winter, and we have
Right.
time. Because otherwise,
That makes
like you're
sense.
paying this many people to,
To at least have
do
some
your event.
contact with the event and then all the
Right.
people
It's
on
not a
site.
one person thing. Like it
No.
is like a lot of people's jobs.
Yes. And they all have like a small piece in it. And I think that's where the quality comes from is
It
that
does.
so many people touch it that, I mean, a few years ago, we were having this problem where we were 30 minutes off on our timeline a few times. And I was like, what is happening? Why is this happening? Because I was always just so very careful to look at
Oh,
timelines.
yeah.
But now we have such a great refined process. I can't even remember the last time that has happened that we've been off on a timeline. So I think the more you like refine those processes and bring more people on to touch it, it's things are just going to get worked out and it's going to be a more seamless
Checks
event.
and balances.
Yes, exactly. If you
Hmm.
have all these people. And you're right, like every time we play one of your events, I just see your staff everywhere.
Everywhere.
And but it's
But you
so
need to
different from
be.
a lot of events that we play where there's like literally one planner
I
and
don't know
she's
how
trying
they
to do
don't
everything.
lose their minds. I mean,
I
even
don't
when I was
either.
first starting out, I usually had somebody, I don't know. I mean, it was so long ago. But, I come from a restaurant background, so like you just don't want to be short staffed. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a planner might be great, but if you're not everywhere at once, then you're missing stuff. I mean, so because we like to have, so say it's an hour before the ceremony, we like to have somebody like available to you all, available to all the vendors for all the
Mm-hmm.
questions. We like somebody to be ready to greet guests as they arrive. That's 1 or 2 people that are like
Mm-hmm.
face people. If a guest needs something, grabbing their gifts, going to the bathroom. And then we
Right.
need one person that's with the wedding party and
Mm-hmm.
photographers and doing all that last minute stuff. And then ideally somebody floating sort of
Yes.
between the three. Um, and then, same for cocktail hours, somebody with the people doing photos, somebody with the vendors, somebody to where if guests have questions, like
Yep.
there's a certain amount of time where we almost always need 3 to 4 to 5 people. And
Mm-hmm.
then later in the night, like they can go, or like maybe there's not a
Right.
lot of setup, they can come late. But that's the best way to just make everybody happy is be everywhere at once. Like it's not rocket science. And when you're talking about like $100,000, $200,000 wedding, like my staffing is a drop in the bucket, but it goes a
Yes.
long
And
way.
but it's so important. It's so much, it's worth whatever they have to pay for it because
And that's yeah, I'm pretty good at saying that too, because it's sort of obvious. It's like, well, you don't want your guests to see the seams.
no, you
Like
don't.
that's not where you trim. You could have trimmed flowers a long way back.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, just for our team, when we get there we always see one of your staff as soon as we get there. And
Yeah.
they're there to be like, you can load
Do
in
you need a
here, you can
water?
set up
How many
here.
chairs?
Right. I mean, it's so important. And there are so many weddings that we play where we set up, because we always get there so early
Hmm.
and we'll get there. And from the time we load in to about 20 minutes before we start prelude, we still haven't seen anybody.
And that's scary.
It is.
Like,
And then we have to then figure out like, do we call them? How are we going to go find them? And because it's really, really important for us to have a conversation before the
it's a
wedding
hard time to
starts.
have a conversation too. I do find on wedding days because even if one of my other girls is sort of being the venue lead and has
Uh-huh.
greeted your folks, I still if I'm the lead planner like to go up and just be like, y'all are
Yes.
good, and then just like talk through it real quick with the sound
Mm-hmm.
person and the minister. I like
And the
to
minister
powwow
too.
with y'all and the minister and the sound guy, but that's a really hard point in time to have attention because it's like everything's happening. Like I feel like every wedding day I'm running around going like, I gotta go talk to the ceremony musicians, but then I do 10 more things and then I'm like, I gotta go talk to those
Well, in
guys.
that hour before,
Oh, it's
It's
the hardest
oh,
hour, but it's like it is so important to get that little meeting in to
it
where like, "Okay,
is.
I'm gonna go up and give an announcement, and then when I walk away, that's your cue to start." Like, it's simple, but it's not.
It's usually the same. We can usually predict how it's gonna be, but every once in a while, well, actually, almost every single time, there's something that's different. And
Uh,
you're right, it's so important to have that conversation of like, are they going is the kiss gonna be the final cue, or are they going to
oh,
present the
yeah, we don't
couple?
know. And that's
Oh,
something I usually don't know even until the rehearsal. Usually that's like the one thing I have to find out at the rehearsal is like cue, cue
what's
for
the cue for the
music.
exit? Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, along these lines, um, what are some things that you like wish your clients knew slash important things to know when booking ceremony and or cocktail hour musicians?
Yeah. Oh, wow, so many things.
Oh
Let's see.
gosh, I know.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is just what we were talking about earlier is all that goes into being a wedding musician. And that, all the time we'll have somebody come back and say, it's okay. My cousin plays the violin. She's going to cover it. And I'm sure their cousin is an amazing violinist. But and I never say it because I never want to be, stepping on toes, but like, there are so many things that go into being a wedding musician, and it's all experience. You know, if you've ever had your music blow away off your stand while you're playing, or you're on a mountaintop and your stand is about to blow over and you have to have your foot on the legs of it so that it will stay up, or communicating with 3 or 4 other people in a group and timing each processional, there's usually more than one, to make sure that one ends and the next begins, and that you're playing the most important part of that song too. Some songs have a 30-second intro. You don't want the bride walking down to a 30-second intro. So many little things that, just you just wouldn't think about without having all the experience. And I just wish that people would know what bad music can do for your wedding and then what good music can do for your wedding, and the huge difference. Because yes, a lot of people are excited to get to the party, but the ceremony really matters. And I have been to so many ceremonies where like I don't even know this couple and I have chill bumps as they are walking down the aisle because the music is so powerful. And you can feel people like in the crowd being like, wow, like once the bride is down the aisle, you kind of like hear this like collective like, and that's just so important. And the way you get that is experienced musicians and making sure that they play the right part of the song and that they end it at the right time and that they're not playing for 30 more seconds while the bride and stands up there, or
Oh, that's
the
the
groom
worst. I'm
stands up
always
there.
like, they saw my
Like,
cue. They saw it, right?
stop.
Yeah, like I
So
always know that there's a little bit of buffer time, but I'm also kind of going like,
right. Oh man, but when you can time it where that they take the last step and you're playing the last
oh,
note and then the music, and that's always our goal. We talk through all of this stuff and we plan it, we mark up the music, we have all these loops written in and all of, we cut the intro sometimes. Anyway, we have all these conversations and I'm just like, man, it's really, really important to have people who do this on a regular basis. It's
mhm.
just the other thing I wish people knew is I think a lot of things that I talk through in my conversations with new clients is logistics of like, is your wedding going to be out in a field and how many guests do you have? And I'm sure this is your conversations with them too, but if they don't have a planner who's kind of coaching them through those things of, is there shade for the instruments? Is
I was
there
gonna mention shade
power?
because couples don't think about that for sure.
Yeah.
That's usually something we'll have to educate them on. And at this point, I go ahead and tell them whenever they book. I think I've said this to you too, like just put a 10 on it. Put a 10 on every single one.
Yes.
No big deal. I have a backup tent if you don't have one. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um,
I think just tent every single time because you never know
yeah.
what the weather is going to be like that day. And the great thing about a tent is with most instruments, if you got a sprinkler or two, your
Mhm.
instruments could keep playing. With most instruments,
But
as
not
long
with
as
the
it's not
harp. Let's
blowing
just
in,
go ahead and
not
say
with the
not with the
harp.
harp.
The harp can't play if there's any precipitation. But most instruments, like if you have that tent, they could keep playing. If they don't have a tent and there's like even like one or two raindrops, they probably couldn't keep playing. So those are
Mhm.
just things to think about, I think, to I know the aesthetics of a tent, a lot of
I
people
know.
don't love, but I personally think it's worth it just to have the peace of mind.
Mhm.
Musicians love playing under a tent. They're much happier when they're under a tent. They really are. They're just probably just the other great thing about a tent is we use iPads for all of our sheet music. So, if we if there's any sunlight, it makes it really, really hard to see the iPad. And if we turn the brightness up, it dies faster. Anyway, all the things.
No,
But
I tell people all of this. I mean, but it's not something that you would know just booking it.
yes. Yeah, and the cold weather too. A lot of people don't think about that. Like they're maybe booking a late October or a November wedding and they're hoping to have instruments outside. And if instruments get cold, they
Mhm.
are sometimes not even playable. So that's something to
Oh
think
yeah.
about too.
I mean, do you think below is it below 60 or is it below 55
We
that's
have
the
55.
blue? Mhm.
And even down to 50, a lot of harp can't play down to 50, but most instruments, if we have a heater or something, will
Mhm.
go close to 50. But if it's in the 40s,
No way.
it just
I
doesn't
know, I've
work.
done it. It's really bad. It hurts your fingers so bad and the instrument sounds terrible and
It really does hurt.
it
Yeah.
hurts. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've stopped. I played a bunch of not wedding, but winter gigs and way back in the day, and no, I have boundaries around that now.
Yes,
I
it's
remember playing
painful.
Winterfest and Blowing Rock
Oh
outside.
my goodness. Yeah,
No.
I played so I have a carbon fiber violin, and so I can play it outside. It won't
Mhm.
hurt it, but it
It
hurts to
hurts, and you don't
play.
play your best.
No, it doesn't sound good. So, and we've done that before for clients, they've gotten the weather forecast and it's mid-October and it's going to be 40 degrees. We've even rented carbon fiber instruments and just been in
Wow.
pain. So there are definitely ways to get around it, but it's definitely an additional cost and something
Mhm.
to figure out as early as you can if you see that the forecast is going to be really
Well,
bad.
here's the thing. If your musicians are cold, your guests are also cold. If your
Yes.
musicians are wet, your guests are also wet. So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, we have diehard granola clients that are like, we're getting married outside no matter what. And we're like, we're right there with you. That's great. Your
Yes.
ceremony musicians are going to need to be inside though.
Yeah.
And, like, we'll say that, but then we'll have clients that are very, very fancy. And it's like, okay, well, but you need to think about your guest shoes because they
Yes.
probably have very fancy shoes. You know what I mean? I mean, there was one at one point where people were in like jewels and furs and like velvet slippers, and the groom
Yeah.
wanted to still have it outside, even though the ground was like saturated. It had been raining all day, and it was like, this is like the royal wedding. Like, we're not doing that.
Right. People or
You're gonna have
everybody
to,
should take their
and you'll have
shoes
to do it
off
without
before they
musician.
walk
I
down
told him,
there.
no, I had to tell him, I was like, okay, if you do that, your guest shoes are gonna get ruined, and from the context clues, your guests have very nice shoes. Also, you'll be doing it silently with no
Yes.
music. So
Yes.
if that's your, because the bride was like, she didn't care about moving it in, the groom cared.
Oh,
We were
well,
like,
it always makes
I
me so
mean,
sad when it happens too.
I
It's
know,
not that we're like, oh, just move it inside. It's not that we don't have any compassion for what's happening. I mean, it's hard to watch
you
that
shouldn't
happen.
ruin your instruments either.
No, but you can't. And we've done that too. We've, added on amplification for the instruments at the last minute and just, 200 feet away,
Yeah,
amplified them
absolutely.
to the ceremony site if they still really, really want to have it outside. So
Mhm,
there are usually solutions, but
mhm.
they're hard decisions.
Well, I want to know if you can say what your favorite configuration of instruments is.
Ooh,
I know, I
oh,
know.
that's
That's
hard.
like probably the hardest thing to answer.
Um, that's really tough. Okay, so I play the violin, so I may be biased,
Yeah.
but I love strings and guitar. That's probably my favorite. If I had to say, it's my favorite to play. It's also I would say it's my favorite to listen to. I love listening to solo guitar.
Mhm.
That's one of my favorites. We've also started doing this octet. It's like a double string quartet and it feels like an
Whoa.
orchestra. it's pretty epic too. That might be up there
How
as
big
one
of a
of my
tent would you need
favorites.
though, if it was outdoor? That's better for indoor probably.
Probably better for
That
indoor.
seems like an indoor situation.
We've done it outdoor. I think you just need twice the size of the tent.
Mhm.
So, and then we usually add a conductor to, keep
Oh,
everybody
yeah,
together.
absolutely.
And but that's been really fun. We've been practicing that and kind of bringing it to life. We have a couple this year with an octet,
That's
so that's
that's
really
really
fun.
cool. We'll keep that in mind for clients
Mm,
for sure.
yeah, it's cool.
Thi this just is random and came to mind. Do you have a preferred placement? I feel like I am usually putting you
Mm,
all, like, front if I'm looking at the front right, but it also depends on,
yes.
of course, power, shade, all of the things. I mean, do you have a preference for, like, side, front, back?
Yeah. So for a few reasons, I have different favorites depending on the configuration of the wedding, I guess.
Mhm,
So I really like being in the front because I like people seeing it as, a part of the bridal party. But if
mhm.
there's a tent or something that people don't want to see, I prefer it then to be at the back. And
Okay.
I really like being at the back too, because I feel like we're a little bit more like a welcome party to people,
Oh,
where like we can face the guests as they walk in. The other reason I like being in the back is that if there are any changes or like we're ready to start the processional, but then somebody has to go to the restroom at the last minute. The
ooh,
planner can just come up and be like, hey, it's going to be 3 more minutes. Whereas if we're at the front, we kind of feel people lining up and we're like, what's happening?
yeah,
So I
that's
like being at the
true.
back for communication purposes, but if we can be at the front and it all works and we can still get good cues and it still looks pretty, I mean,
Mhm.
I love being at the front. I guess that's probably my favorite, but most of the time we're at the back for logistics and things like that.
I was gonna say, I think for me, I don't think it's something I put a lot of thought into because it's different for every venue. And I feel like whichever venue it is, it's sort of obvious where you would probably be. There's rarely like a lot of
I think
options,
so
which
too.
is why I don't have a like, you're definitely here perspective
It
either.
it it does change a lot. I think so too.
Mhm.
And
In churches in the front.
in churches in the
So
front, I would say
unless there's
always in
like
the
a
front and
choir
church
loft or
with.
something in the back, I guess.
And I really like when I'm playing a wedding, I really like to be able to see the front of the aisle because I really want to be able to time the endings of songs. Even
Mm.
though the planner is giving us cues, sometimes we'll get that cue early and like a flower girl will be halfway down the aisle. And
Mhm.
depending on where we're sitting, I can't see the flower girl, if it's a little one.
Right.
So it always helps me a lot to see the front of the aisle. So a lot of
Mhm.
times when I'm positioning us, I think about my visuals to be able to see the planner, to be able to see the front of the aisle and as much of the aisle as possible so I can time the end of the songs.
That makes
I
sense.
like doing that too.
Okay, favorite song or favorite songs?
Mm.
And you can say like as processional or as, the couple
Yeah.
walks or as recessional. I don't know.
Okay. So I still love Canon in D. It's still my
Sure.
favorite song to play for a processional. Like if it's for a bride, a bridal party, I know it's played all the time and everybody uses it, but there is something about that song that like the chill bumps, you get the chill bumps every time you play that song. So I'm not over it. I've played it a million times. I still love it. So don't stop using Canon and D. I love
Yeah.
Canon and D. But that's probably the one classical one I would say I still just absolutely love to play. But then as far as pop songs, like so we've been doing a lot of Taylor Swift lately.
Shocking.
Yes, right? So that's been fun. It's really difficult to play Taylor Swift on string instruments. So,
Oh,
yeah, I think it's really important to make sure you can recognize what the song is before you decide that's what you want with things like that. But those are really fun. We're having fun learning those. Wildest Dreams is probably the most popular still.
thanks.
I would say for an exit song, This Will Be an Everlasting Love
Mm,
is maybe my favorite, or Oh, Best Day of My Life by American Authors. That
nice.
one's really popular. And I love that one. I also love um I Get to Love You. I think that's so
Oh, we
beautiful on
had that, I feel like
strings.
once or twice last
It's
year.
so
Mhm.
pretty. One we just got and we're doing all the time now is Goodness of God. It's a contemporary Christian song, and tons of people are requesting this for their walk
Oh,
down
I've
the
never heard
aisle.
it.
It's really pretty, and it's a very magical, like ethereal kind of sound, and I'm really loving that one too. That's a new one for a
Cool.
walk down the aisle. Yeah, those are my favorites
Yay. We'll
probably.
keep those in mind.
Yeah.
Um, okay. My kind of wild card question is, what do you eat on a wedding day? Like,
Mm.
how do you stay like, we all have our routines for like
Yeah.
getting ready and like, what am I doing for my, or like even wedding weekend when you've got a bunch of stuff, like, what are you eating? What are you drinking?
Yeah. This has kind of evolved over time because I used to do that. I used to not eat on wedding days, or I'd forget to
Hmm.
eat, and that's not good. So I always take an apple. I'm always eating an apple right before I get to the wedding or when I'm setting up or things like that. So I just love having an apple before. Um, my go-to though is Chipotle if I'm driving up the mountain. Um, and if I'm going to Linville, I always stop at Reed's and get a salad on
Oh,
my
that's
way.
smart.
Um, and so if I have time, that's my high country routine, is to stop there and grab a salad and then
Perfect.
go on in. But yeah, Chipotle, and I always have an apple. And then I usually keep something in my bag just in case. We've had a few weddings where things are really late, or we get asked to stay and do something extra because the band's not ready or things like that. So I always keep nuts or, some sort of a granola bar snack or something in my bag just in case that happens. So
We always have vendor snacks if your team is ever hungry on our wedding.
we
Because
love
everybody,
that.
I mean, that's everybody. We're just not the the most of the towns that we work in, um, there's just like not a lot of options. So we're always prepared for
Yeah. Right. You can't just
everybody.
run down the street and grab a snack because
Mm-mm.
there's usually nothing. I mean, most of the places are pretty remote. So
Right.
it is important to plan ahead, I think. And a lot of times, if we're playing something late, like dinner music or something, and then driving back, sometimes things are closed.
They're absolutely closed anywhere if it's after 9.
Yes. So you have to plan ahead for that too. It's a lot to
You
think
really
about.
do. Do you have
Yeah.
certain shoes that you wear? I know you're not running around as much as like a planner or
Oh,
caterer or photographer, but like I always like to ask people about their shoes.
yeah. So my shoes, I find I'm really rough on my shoes. Like they get muddy and all the load ins. So sometimes if I can already tell it's going to be muddy, I just wear my black rain boots for load
Mhm.
in. And then I keep heels in my bag and change into them when we're ready to play. Uh, but the other thing I do is I go to like TJ Maxx and I just buy whatever cheap, like pointed toe black flats they have, and I just buy lots of them and keep them in my closet. And then when they get dirty, I just throw them
Yeah.
away or wash them and go on to the next pair. So those are kind of, if I know I'm just going to be walking a lot, I just go ahead and put those on and wear them all day because they
Yeah.
still look fancy enough under a skirt or pants or
Mhm.
something. Yeah.
Shoe
What about
strategy.
you?
Oh, let's see. A lot of us do dance goes, like, but
Yeah.
I've got about 5 different pairs, but either like the booties or the wedges. I try to not show toes on a wedding day.
Yes. Me
In
too.
theater school, did they tell you this as musicians that
No.
toes are too intimate for people you just met? So like for auditions for theater, we
Huh.
weren't allowed to like you didn't show your toes.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So I've like kind of carried that over unless it's like super casual and we're in chacos or something like that, or like break down Birkenstocks, So we
Yes.
try to be closed toed most of the time. Um, so yes,
We
let's
do
see,
too.
dance goes. What else? That's the main thing, I think. I sometimes have some nicer, fancier ones, especially for indoor that
Yeah.
I'll wear, whether it's just some like classic black pumps. But there's
Me too.
certain shoes that I'll wear for like the 3 hours where I'm the most visible, like right before the
Hmm.
ceremony through when the cake is cut. And then the rest is like we might be setting up in Blundstones in the rain or breaking down
Yes.
in sandal, it just
Right.
really depends. But I feel like a lot of us are dance go girlies, like clog kind of situations.
Yeah.
Are there any other ones I'm missing? What other shoes do we wear?
No, pretty much the dance goes. Sorry,
I
of course.
can't do flats. My back won't allow me to wear
Mm,
like flat
Yeah.
flats.
Yeah, I
yeah.
have some mules from sorry, my dog is making noise in the background. I have some mules from Madewell that are really nice. So
Oh, cool.
I'll be right.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
shoes are
think,
so important. I think the main thing, look, we can see Sarah's dog in the background, and that's adorable.
oh, how
Um,
cute.
I think the main thing I tell our associate planners is just bring multiple pairs of shoes because you're going to want to change. I have not found one pair of shoes that is comfortable for 12 hours. Like all
Yes,
of them will rub. So if you can just change it, and then of course
that's so
Band-Aids and
true.
stuff. But wedding season, I usually have a bin like this in my car
Mhm.
of shoes
Yeah, I
I
usually
because I
have
love
don't know.
multiple
that.
pairs, at
I
least,
don't know.
and I trade them out throughout the day.
Or
Wow.
yeah, I mean we're serious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I just leave my black rain boots in my car all the
Hmm.
time during wedding season because you never, I don't want to load in and get my feet all wet and then
Right.
have to, yeah. So it's good to have a few pairs.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah,
Fun. All right. Well, I could talk to you for days and hours, but we should probably get to work. It is a Monday morning
I
after all.
know. I probably have a lot of emails to respond to. I haven't even
Oh, I
looked at
know
them
we
yet
do. We do
today.
for sure. Is there anything else you want to share with people? I feel like we covered a lot of bases.
I know. I think we covered a lot. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else that would be good for me to share?
We should probably tell
Yeah.
people, we should probably like act like this is a podcast and tell people where to find you.
Oh, that's funny. Yes, you can find us on deansduets.com. Both of them have an S, Deans Duets. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We're not on Twitter. We're not on Pinterest. Might do
There
that
you go.
eventually. Yeah.
What are you doing on TikTok?
Oh, we're just
All
playing
sorts of
around
stuff?
on TikTok. It's fun.
Same. I'm not even on, nobody search for me. I'm not doing anything interesting on TikTok, but like I am playing around a little bit and just like
Yeah.
posting random content and also
I kind
random
of like
music and
it.
and
Like I
nothing.
feel like you can be less serious on TikTok.
Yeah.
We're both such a fancy brand, and I
Yeah.
think I think TikTok can be really fun and you can show more just random behind the scenes stuff like your
Mhm.
wedding day shoes and
Great.
stuff like that.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I'm
I'm
not trying to
I'm
spend time doing business on TikTok, but I'm
no.
trying to hang out there some.
Yeah, so we've gotten some leads from TikTok. It's
That's
kind of crazy.
wild.
Yeah, it's wild. We've probably gotten 8 so far. Hasn't been
Okay.
a lot, but it's interesting like how different it is from Instagram. I'm still figuring it out.
I Yeah, it's so random. I sometimes will just post something just to see what it does because
See what
sometimes I'll be like,
happens.
okay,
I can never predict it. The things I
no,
think are
no,
going
it's
to do
unpredictable.
great don't, and then random stuff is it can blow up. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe nobody knows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, but TikTok's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
We've done Instagram for so long. It's fun to just try something different.
I
So,
agree.
yeah,
Good. All right. Well, thanks
this
so
was
much
so
for
much
taking the
fun.
time to talk to us today, and
Yeah,
we'll be seeing you all over all season.
all season, all year. I can't wait.
Yay.
I love it. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. I'll see you guys soon.